Hi everyone, I hope I'm finding you all well. Due to scheduling, I decided to record this lecture instead of giving it as a Google Meet. So if there are any questions that you have about this topic, just let me know. As usual, send me an email, come to my avail. So today we're talking about credit cards. I'm just going to start with the definition of a credit card, just because I know, especially you're at that age, maybe some of you have credit cards, maybe some of you don't. So just a definition of a credit card is it's a card that allows you to borrow money from a bank, and you can use that money, of course, to purchase things. So the trick with the credit card is that it's not taking money from your bank account like your debit card. It is instead borrowing money from a bank. So with borrowing money comes interest, which we've just spent quite a while talking about. So the interest is calculated on the amount the balance that you have left on your card. And this interest continues to add up, and you end up paying interest on your interest, and it continues to accumulate until you end up paying off your credit card or doing a deposit. Often you can pay off credit cards using online banking, or you could, I guess, go to the bank also, but I guess all of these things are done online these days. So you keep getting this interest build up until you pay it off. Okay, so that's the whole premise of a credit card. The parts of a credit card, so a few key things. Most credit cards, especially nowadays, have a chip, and the chip makes it very easy to purchase something. You can just tap it, not have to enter a PIN or anything else. You have a card number that's specific to you. That's your card number. You also have an expiration date. So obviously, before your expiration date, you do have to go into your bank and get your card renewed, or I think you can just submit the application online and they'll mail it to you. So keep your eye on your expiration dates. And you also on the back have a security code, and that's just 3 numbers. So between the card number, the expiration date, and your security code, if you ever tried to make a purchase online, those are the 3 things besides like your name and your personal information that's tied to your card. So those 3 things are what you need in order to make a purchase. So in a store, you can either tap it or insert it or swipe it. A lot of times swiping doesn't even work anymore. That's what the magnetic stripe is for. It's also called a mag stripe. What else is important here? I guess the hologram doesn't have anything to do with your chip. Instead, it's just something that's very, very, very hard to replicate. So if you see a credit card without a hologram, it's very likely to be fake. Okay? So of course, the design of your credit card depends on your bank and your institution. There might be some different factors, but most of the time, it looks something like this. I've noticed that there's always a place to sign the back, and it's a good idea to sign the back of your credit card for security reasons as soon as you get it. So that's credit card 101. Again, you might have a credit card, or you would at least probably have a debit card by now. So this should look mildly familiar, else you've used your parents, right? So how do credit cards work in terms of the transaction? So what happens? Well, you go to the store or you go to the online store and you make a purchase. This purchase is through the merchant, right? That's the store. So then what happens? The merchant, that gets transferred to the acquirer. And the acquirer, or the acquiring bank, maintains the merchant's bank account. So the acquirer does all the banking for this store. Okay? So each store does their banking through some bank. Okay? So after they contact the acquirer being like, hey, this person with this bank made this purchase, the acquirer then communicates to the issuer. So the issuer is the bank that you have the card with. Okay, so you can't just open a card without having a bank issuing it, right? You can't just have a Visa card. Of course, Visa cards, they are associated with some bank. So for example, I'm with Scotiabank, so I have a Scotiabank Visa card, okay? So then in this case, the acquirer would go to Scotiabank and be like, hey, Miss Campbell made this purchase for $20 on the card. So then the order of things, so like the issuer is then going to bill the card holder, but the merchant is paid before the card holder, or me or you, pays off the credit card, right? So this is good for the merchant because it means that there's not going to be a case where a check's going to bounce or they're not going to get paid. So this is very secure for them. So so then after the merchant is paid, the acquirer, so the acquiring bank, the store's bank, is also paid. And then finally, the balance that you have, you're either going to not pay it and continuing to build interest, right? At this point, everybody else is paid, so everything looked after except for this balance that you have with the issuing bank. So the last step is that you should probably pay off your card. And really the advice I give, especially at this point, especially if you are just making small purchases, sometimes it can benefit you to make purchases on your credit cards because of reward programs or deals or whatever. But I mean, my ultimate advice is to not spend money that you don't have and to pay off your credit card as soon as possible. So I usually, I'll go buy groceries, I'll pay using my Visa card. Often, especially right now, because you only need to tap it, I like that because of not having to touch anything besides my card. So I'll pay for my groceries with my Visa card, and then I'll go home and I'll open up my Scotiabank app and instantly pay the balance, right? So that there's no time for the issuer to start charging me interest. And on a typical bank, regular young person credit card, usually the interest is very high. So it's probably around 20%. Okay, so, you want to get that paid off as soon as you can. So that's credit card 101. If you want a credit card, you either need to be 18 or you need a co-signer. So if you have a credit card, even if you're not sure, it's very likely that your parents went in to the bank with you and co-signed your card. So that basically says, okay, if anything happens and they're not able to pay their balance in a certain amount of time, then I will step in and be fiscally responsible for this card. Okay? There's often also, and there's exceptions, but there's typically also an income requirement to have a card. And it depends on the type of card. So fancier cards might require a larger income requirement. That it also dictates how much you're allowed to borrow or your credit limit. So for example, if you have a very low income requirement, you might only be able to borrow $1,000. But as you increase your income, the bank is going to be like, oh, they have more money. They're going to be able to pay us back. I'm going to give them a larger credit limit. So it's likely that, after you start working and start getting your regular paychecks, your bank's going to contact you and be like, hey, would you like to borrow more money at a time? And there's pros and cons to that. But anyway, so that's your minimum income requirement. The last thing it'll look at is a credit score. So as a young person opening your first credit account, getting your first credit card, it's likely that you don't have a credit score, and that's okay. Banks are pretty understanding. What you don't want is a bad credit score. So a credit score, by definition, it's a number between about 300 and 850, and it indicates how good your credit is. And by that, I mean, do you have outstanding debts? Do you have loans? How quickly were you able to pay back your loans in the past? So it takes into account basically all your financial transactions up to now and calculates this credit score. Typically, you want a credit score that's greater than 700. Also, in a lot of cases, they actually decrease your credit score for checking your credit score. I think there's some ways that you can do it that doesn't do that anymore. But yeah, credit score, again, it won't matter for you for a little while, but eventually it will. Okay, so that's why it's very important that you do, pay back your balances very quickly and don't take out large loans for an extended amount of time, because that will wreak havoc on your credit score. Okay, so why would you want a credit card? Why not just use your debit card or do cash or checks or I don't know, the barter system? I don't know. Some advantages, of course, it's very convenient. It's really nice just to be able to tap a card and pay for your purchase. It's very fast. You've been in a line before in a store where the old woman in front of you is counting your change and you're like, oh my goodness, like why are you doing this to me? So I mean, that doesn't happen when you have a credit card. It's nice that it's to the point that almost everywhere accepts credit cards. Even they've had developments in the last few years that's made it very easy for small businesses. Even like if you go to a farmer's market, they might have point of sale machines, which is really neat. So a lot of people accepts credit cards. It's nice. Also, if you're traveling internationally, they'll also accept credit cards, which is good if you don't always want to make sure you have enough foreign currency for your purchases. That's kind of nice. Makes it really easy to buy things online. You can withdraw cash from every bank. A lot of debit cards permit that too, but charges you a significant fee. So anyway, credit cards, they often have some sort of an incentive program, so you can earn some sort of reward for using your card and paying back your balances quickly. And it's also a good thing for merchants. Like I said before, the stores, if you use your credit card, they are guaranteed payment. It's really the issuing bank that takes the fall if you are not paying back your credit card, and they're charging you interest and they've got a lot of money anyway. Okay, so it's really nice. It's not, individual stores are not suffering. Okay. Some disadvantages of credit cards. I mean, security is always an issue. So it's possible for your card to be lost or stolen. It's possible for your information to be stolen online. So of course, it's very important to keep your information as secure as possible and not to give out your credit card information and not to go to sketchy websites and throw in your credit card, right? Another huge disadvantage is interest, right? So if you are not checking your account balance and you're just putting money on your card, then the interest rate, especially, again, 20%, after a while, that's really gonna start adding up. It also, credit cards are a downfall for a lot of people because it gives you a false sense of wealth, right? You say, well, I have this money in credit. I might not have it in my bank account, but it's okay. Like, it's some way for me to still be able to spend it to get what I need, even though I might not actually have the money, and then I'll have to pay it back and I won't be able to pay it back. So it's going to start again. It's a bad cycle, and it gets a lot of people into debt. A disadvantage for using credit if you're in a small business, and especially if you're buying from a small business and using the machine for a very small transaction. That's why a lot of small businesses have a minimum credit limit on their machine, like $5 minimum purchase, because the bank is going to charge a fee per each transaction to your credit card. They're going to charge a fee to the retailer per transaction on your credit card. So they might have to give, 2% of the purchase back to the issuing bank, or the merchant bank, I guess. So small businesses recommend either debit if they have it, or cash. Okay, so now maybe you're like, oh, well, actually, I would like a credit card, or I'm going to CEGEP next year and I probably should have a credit card. In order to choose one, there's a lot of things that you have to think about. And there's an activity in your course pack for this week that's going to outline and give you an opportunity to choose one and to compare different benefits and interest rates and all these things to see, I guess, what's up there. Okay, so I took this list of factors from the handout so that you'll be able to refer back to this presentation when you're trying to look for this information on the website that I've given you. So the first thing that you need to look at is your annual percentage rate. It's basically your interest rate plus any other, broker fees, closing costs, rebates, any other type of bank fees that just are related to loans and interest rates. Okay, so usually they give that online instead of the interest rate, just because it kind of encompasses everyone, so that there's no hidden fees, which people like. So that's typically what you look at when you compare cards in order to choose one. So APR, annual percentage rate. So that's the first thing. Obviously, you want to choose a card that doesn't have a super, super high interest rate. Okay, lower the better. The next thing, some cards have an annual fee. So this goes basically towards keeping your account open. And often there's not an annual fee, but if there is, there's usually some sort of a benefit to paying that fee. It comes out in the wash in some other way, maybe some better rewards, maybe some other thing, I don't know. Typically, as students, they will waive the annual fee until you're not a student anymore. So for most banks, you need to submit proof that you're a student and continue to do that annually, and they'll renew your card and make it, or they'll renew your card, they'll renew your account and say, okay, she's still a student, so she doesn't have to pay the annual fee. So that happens a lot, and important, especially if you're comparing student accounts, because often banks do have special accounts just for you. All right, so there's the annual fee, and there's often also other fees, and maybe these are really specific fees, but maybe some of them could apply to you. If you have a low credit limit and you put more purchases on your card than you have money, sometimes they'll decline your card, or sometimes they will give you just a fee, so they won't embarrass you in public, but they'll charge this great fee for going over your limit. There's often a fee if you're a big traveler. There's often a fee for doing business in other countries. So if you're buying even something in the States, they're gonna take a certain percentage, or maybe a certain I guess it'd be a percentage in order to convert your Canadian currency into the other countries. So that can be, pretty pricey. There's also, other administrative fees. And if you have multiple cards on the same account, which happens, especially if you have like family accounts, or your parents might have a joint account, there's often an additional fee for each card that you have on the same account. Okay, Um, what else could help you choose a credit card? Balance transfer. So this is important if you have, really most important when you have multiple credit cards. So this says that, okay, if I have a bunch of money on this higher interest credit card, balance transfer means that I can, once I've paid off a lower interest credit card, I can transfer the balance on my higher interest credit card to my lower interest credit card so that I'm paying less interest on the long term. Okay. And some banks allow this and some banks don't. And most of them don't allow, especially if the bank is, if both cards are in the same bank. But yeah, so do they allow that? Some banks are very free with that. Some says, well, you can do that, but you have to pay us a fee. The more the story is credit cards, there's a lot of fees involved. Okay, so you have to be very careful for, random extra charges. Again, salary. So if you're looking for a starter credit card, you probably shouldn't choose one where you need to have an income of 60 grand a year, because as a student, you're not going to have an income of 60 grand a year. Okay, so that just, I guess, weeds some out right away. Right? If there's a minimum salary requirement that you don't meet, then obviously you're not going to be eligible to get that card. What else? A grace period. So that's after you make your transaction, how long do they give you in order, to pay your balance? How much time do they give you past the deadline without giving you extra fees to pay off the card or to pay the minimum balance? So typically, and a lot of cards, you have to pay at least the interest every month in order to not, procure any more fees. So that's something to keep in mind. Also for, credit, less cards, more larger, larger credit. So for example, student loans. Some banks, a lot of banks, I guess, give a grace period for your student loans. So for example, a lot of my friends, they didn't have to start paying off their student loans until they were making a minimum salary. Okay, so once they hit that point, they were able to start paying off their student loan, but before that, they didn't have to worry about it, because the bank, I guess, assumed that they were, transitioning into an actual career job and didn't want to saddle new graduates with a bunch of loans right off the bat. So that's something to keep in mind for sure. And finally, other should be labeled bonuses. Okay, so again, like I said before, a lot of cards have some sort of incentive for signing up with them or staying with them. So for example, a lot of cards have sign-up bonuses. So I've seen banks offer, if you sign up, for this account with us today, we're going to give you even up to like a free iPad or something like that. So there's some sort of a bonus, or it could even be a cash bonus. Being like, I'll give you, so much money to sign up for this account, or sign up for this account, and so much money is already going to be waiting in that account for you. So there's some sort of an initiative to sign up in the first place. Okay. Another thing is maybe there's just kind of an everyday reward. So a lot of cards, you might get air miles for using it. You might get some other sort of point. So points that you can spend on groceries or other travel or whatever. For some reason, I really need to change my credit card, but for some reason I have the Scene card. So every time I use both my debit and my credit card, I earn Scene points for Cineplex. So it means that me and whoever I take to the movies has not had to pay for the movies for literally years, because right now I do all my transactions with that card, so I acquire a lot of Scene points. So right now I have like I don't know, 12 free movies just sitting on my account. I don't go to the movies that often, but it's really nice that when I do go, I don't have to pay. So that's one thing that's nice. But looking at the rewards, looking how good they are, and looking at something that's, making sure that there's something that's useful to you. Like if you don't travel really, maybe a point that gets you air miles, or maybe you don't travel but you want to travel, so a card that gets you air miles might be a good idea. Okay, so all things to keep in mind. Sometimes there's annual bonuses that your credit card company can give you, and sometimes these rewards are tiered. So it's proportional to how much you buy, how many transactions you have on your card. If you use your card a lot, you might be eligible for greater rewards than if you don't use it very much at all. So good. Just a few closing ideas. If you feel inspired and you're I wish I could talk to you about this in person, but if you feel inspired to get a credit card, or if you have one already, just a few things to keep in mind. I've said a few of them before. Don't share your account with anyone. Don't leave your card lying around. Don't take pictures of your card. I think we've all seen like a posts on, I don't know, various sites where somebody's I got my first credit card, and posts a picture, and somebody comments, oh, that's really cool, let me see the back, and they send a picture of the back, and then suddenly there's a charge on their credit card for like $1,000 because that's exactly the information that you need in order to make a purchase. Okay, so be smart with sharing your information. Nobody else should know your information. If you're, so don't leave it around. Make sure all of your information is up to date. Make sure, your, if you move especially, that your account is updated with your new address. Very important. Make sure that you secure your device and network. So I wouldn't do big online purchases if I'm on a public network. I wouldn't do it if I was not on my own computer, right? And just be very careful with that. Don't ever, if you're in public, don't check the option to keep yourself signed in. Like, that's very stupid. Don't do that. Okay. So if you lose your card, maybe you've dropped it in the street, or you just can't find it, don't sit on it for too long. Make sure you cancel it. They might charge you a little bit to get a new one, but it's much better than somebody finding it and using it, especially since it's very easy for somebody to use a lost card because of tap. So if somebody finds that card and taps to purchase before you cancel it, then you're out of money. So that's too bad. Don't do that. Another thing is, I know if you go online shopping and you don't want to check your account balance, it might hurt a little bit. Still do, okay? Number 1, budgeting, which we'll talk about. Number 2, to make sure that there's no costs that pop up that you didn't make. And it's also a good idea to just keep an eye on, just the purchases you are making, being like, oh, I forgot that I signed up for my free trial of Amazon Prime and they've started charging me. Maybe I should cancel that and re-sign up with another email address because Prime is great. Okay. So yeah, definitely keep your eye on your transactions. Make sure nothing shady is going on there. And again, online checkout, secure website. Just be careful, right? It's personal information, and they have the potential for things to go really bad. Of course, if there is unauthorized activity on your card, you can report it as such, and there's a chance that they might not hold you accountable for that. But that's just a chance, and I wouldn't, hold to that. So be careful. All right, so what I want you to do starting tomorrow is fill out the rest of the course pack. So like I said, instead of making you submit something and make myself mark something every day, I'm just going to do it kind of as a lump. yeah, so what you need to do about credit cards is in the course pack, basically the rest of it. So you go to this website and it lets you compare all of these different cards based on rewards and fees and banks and all sorts of stuff. And then there's a chart to fill in, and then you actually, quote unquote, choose your favorite. Okay, so if you need any help with that, if you're having issues navigating, I think it's pretty straightforward, the website, and you just really need to choose a card for each category. Like, for example, one category is travel cards. So you can go in to rewards and then choose travel, and then choose one of the cards that comes up, okay? And of course, there's lots of options. It doesn't really matter which one you choose, but I mean, pretend that you're shopping for one. So you want to choose what you think is the best one. And what's best for you might not be the best for someone else, okay? So hopefully this is fun and rewarding, because it's something, we all have to do at some point. Again, if you have any questions, let me know, and have a great rest of your week.